Yeah, good afternoon. Yeah, we warmly welcome all the participants to this DIT program 2021. And I thought most of you are IBSL members, Institute of Bankers of Sri Lanka. It's a statutory body incorporated by Act of Parliament. Our chairman and vice chairman is from the Central Bank of Sri Lanka, Deputy Governor and the Assistant Governor of the Central Bank, and the IBSL governing board members consisting of the most of the CEOs of the banks, including People's Bank, Bank of Ceylon, National Savings Bank, Sampath Bank, Ceylon Bank. Our core programs are IABF and DABF. In addition, we are conducting this type of diploma programs. Per annum, we are conducting around 14, 15 diploma programs. DIT, Diploma in International Trade, is the one of the most popular program conducted by the College of the Institute Bankers of Sri Lanka. When we come to the DIT program, it consists of 5 modules, and the evaluation, the end of the program, we are doing the final evaluation of the final examination. It's 70 marks allocated for the final exam, and meantime, we'll give you assignments. It's 30% of the final marks allocated for the assignments. The course director of the DIT program is Mr. Susantha Caldera. So it's one of the most senior lecturer attached to our IBSL faculty. In addition to this DIT course director, so is conducting the lectures for the postgraduate executive diploma in management program, the particular subject of the diploma in international trade, as well as the DAB program. There's a subject DIT. The Sinhala and English medium, both mediums resource person is Mr. Susantha Caldera. So was the Assistant General Manager of the Cargill's Bank. Before to join to the Cargill's Bank, so worked in Standard Chartered Bank as well as HSBC. So as the head of trade, and so has the vast experience, working experience in local as well as the international experience. Is the asset to the IBSL of Mr. Caldera. Though he's very busy, he never says no to the IBSL. Other than the IBSL, so he's lecturing in the University of California too. Warmly welcome you, sir, for this DIT program. And in addition to Mr. Caldera, Mrs. Anoma Ranasinghe, she'll doing for few to conduct the few lessons. She is the General Manager, GSC Shipping Limited, as well as Mr. Chayantha De Silva, former manager, Sri Lanka Insurance Corporation, so is also doing few sessions. What we expect from you is please participate for all these sessions conducted by the IBS for this DIT program. And it's Mr. Susantha Caldera has the vast experience, therefore you can gain and share his knowledge. And finally, at the end of DIT program, I have no doubt you have the vast experience and knowledge about this program. Saying these things, so thank you very much, Mr. Caldera, for the invitation and come today for lecturing. And special thanks go to our Mr. Menaka. He's the coordinator of this DIT program. If you have any query about this, please, he will assist you and contact him, Mr. Menaka Vichayadasa, the coordinator and the assistant director of the IBSA. Thank you very much again, Mr. Caldera, and the forum is for you to conduct the program. Thank you.
Can you hear me? Good afternoon. No response?
Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon. Okay.
Good afternoon, sir. Good afternoon, sir.
Time to time, I will ask you this type of thing because sometimes we are doing online. Sometimes connections get cut off, and all those technical things are happening. So that is why I just want to check with you time to time whether you are with me, right? Okay. Now, Mrs. Godakanda, our Director Studies, thank you once again, Mrs. Godakanda. for the introduction, and she gave some inside knowledge about this program as well as some programs by IBSN, right? Particularly this particular program, I personally would like to have it physically. That even the IBSL knows about that, because that's my personal wish. Because this type of program, higher diploma program, it's very difficult to conduct online. But if you are in a classroom, then we have more interaction. We can crack jokes, we can do anything, and we can do role plays, right? And there are a lot of ways we can exchange our knowledge. But anyway, because of the country situation, the health situation, because of the COVID, now we have no option. We'll have to start these courses like this. But I hope and I pray in time to come, everything will be normalized and we may be able to meet each other and have more interactions, right? This program consisting of more than 90 hours of learning time, out of which I have allocated about 12 to 15 hours for practical sessions. When we are doing the practical sessions, of course, you have to come to the institute. Practical sessions in the sense, there's no point of teaching online because especially for subject like international trade, you have to have some experience in document checking and all. So, for example, my previous last year class, still they couldn't have the practical sessions. So tomorrow we are starting. So I'm going to meet them after a long time, and they are going to start checking the documents. The difficult area in international trade operations, checking the document checking. So that part also we have included, and you will be tested as one of the assignments of checking one document. So before that, I hope we don't have to wait that long. If we can meet each other, that will be the best, right? Another thing is, if I talk about the ground situation of this one, we all are working online, but to have a class for 4 hours continuously, it's cumbersome. You and me, we both know that sitting there for 4 hours and doing in a classroom, yes, we really enjoy the classroom. We laugh, we crack jokes, and make it back, right? So this is why I thought I'll give you a break for 15 minutes or so. So take a small break, pour your own cup of tea, and then come back and join us after 15 minutes. So I'll let you know what time. Before I start this session, traditionally, I would like to introduce myself as well as to get some idea about the participants. Today, I think not bad. We have quite a lot of participants. First day, I don't mind spending a few minutes on introducing yourself, but I don't know how many people will talk. At least tell me, bank-wise, at least tell me you're from which bank. I know there was a few guys from Sampath Bank, Standard Chartered. Then what else? Ceylon. Okay.
MCB Bank.
Pardon?
MCB.
MCB Bank. Okay.
I'm from Commercial Bank.
Okay.
I'm also from Commercial Bank, sir.
Commercial Bank. So
Yeah.
we have Commercial Bank on how many people? About 5, 6. Normally, Commercial Bank, there are about 5, 6 people. And Sampath Bank also. What are other banks? HNB?
I'm from
DFCC.
DFCC? Do you have it?
Yes. Yes.
DFCC. Yeah. HNB?
I'm
Yes.
from HNB.
HNB. All right.
Yes.
Right. How many people are presently working in trade finance department? That's a very important question I ask. I need some feedback because I have to. Then I can tailor-make the sessions. How many people working in the?
Me, sir. From MCB.
Yeah, Nusha, Muthagala also from trade finance.
Yes, from Sampath Bank.
Sampath Bank. So
I'm Shanita, sir, from Commercial Bank, attached to Exports Department.
Exports department. Good.
So I'm Jody. I'm from HSBC. I'm attached to Trade Department.
Trade department. Judy, about your trade department, are you doing the processing here or?
Actually, I'm newly joined. Now it's like almost 1 month. So processing stuff, what we are doing is we have like 2 split bases. So we are like going to Union Place for processing, and another week we are visiting to Ford branch to handle the customers.
Okay. Okay. Right. Who else?
Me, sir. I'm from MCB, Trade Department.
Trade department. Good. Good. So that means there are few, not few, a lot of people are from trade department. Right. Why you should improve or enhance your industry knowledge when you are working in import-export operations? Why? Because the trade, as trade practitioners, this knowledge is vital for us when we are doing the day-to-day operations. It is very important. And the people who are working in the trade finance department, this international trade is itself a very high-risk business. High-risk business, right? So when you're working in international trade, you should be able to identify the risk involved and how to mitigate them. That is one of the important things in international trade operations. And not only that, when you are doing some operational issues, right, you should be able to analyze the issues and find the solution and to mitigate all types of trade risk, right? Another area in trade is managing financing and payment methods. Because why customers are coming to the bank is not that They want to come to the bank, but they are coming mainly for the financing facilities. Under trade, the bills are millions and millions. They don't have that much of money in their hands, so that is why they are coming to the bank for asking financing facilities. Now, when they come to finance facilities, then you should be able to advise them the best way. Then only the customers will start loving you. The loyalty is very important. And another area we should know about is in international trade is supply chain management. Supply chain management is handling the many variables in the international transportation of goods, right? So that part, for example, port of loading, port of destination, Incoterms, mode of transport, etc. and etc. Now, when you are involved in international trade, you have to have a fair knowledge about this supply chain management also. So to teach you, I think I have selected the best person on supply chain management, Mrs. Anoma Ranasinghe. She will be handling that particular part in transportation part. Now, gradually, when you're now, for example, HSBC, Judy is
Yeah.
just mentioned. She has just joined 1 month back, and this is a very good thing that when you join a new department, you want to enhance your knowledge, and you are gathering more knowledge. Once you gather more knowledge, gradually your talents will grow, and you will be the best talent for the job, right?
Yeah.
And time and time again, we know that having the right people in the right place can make all the difference in a department. And most of your managers, your bosses will like you. If you don't go to them with an issue, but if you go to them with the issue as well as your suggestions, your solution, then only they have to discuss it with you and fine tune it. So, any organization, the bosses will be happy to have people like you, right? And especially in banks, it is not easy to go up in the ladder, we all know, right? And if you show your colors, definitely you will have an edge over the others, right? But only thing, this course is getting changed, and with Mrs. Godakanda, with discussions with Mrs. Godakanda, this time also I have changed the syllabus a little, right? So I am more focusing on practical aspect in international trade, more than the theory, the practical aspects in international trade, right? But don't think that you can be a professional with a short course like this, right? This is only the beginning, the first step. After that, you have to go on studying and to become a good professional, right? In this syllabus, under this syllabus, we are going to discuss about the introduction, then the payment methods, then I'm going to discuss about the special types of LCs, right? Then various documents in international trade, Incoterms, the risk associated in international trade, import-export financing, usage of bank guarantees, trade like entrepôt trade, import-export controls in Sri Lanka. That also I have added this year, because what I have seen last year, the people who are in the trade finance department, you must have seen, you must have experienced how many circulars you are getting on a weekly basis or maybe on a daily basis. There was a time last year, 2020, between April and August, if I'm correct, almost every other day you get a circular from central bank, right? Today they issue, tomorrow they amend it. Again they issue another one, again they amend it, right? It is like that. So we have to have a basic idea about the import-export controls in Sri Lanka. So that is, in a nutshell, I have explained to you what we are going to learn, right? And another thing, what I really like this class. That's what I'm always giving my best to this DIT class, right? Because this is my favorite thing in my banking career, trade finance, and you guys are in the same business like I was. So one day I want you to be the best people in this business, right? For that, we have another international exam. If people like to learn, that is CDCS, Certified Document Create Specialist exam, conducted by Banking Institute in London. But nowadays, with the exchange rates, it is not easy to do CDCS. Bit difficult because very expensive. To do CDCS, you have to spend about 3 lakhs, 3.5 lakhs. So at least 3 lakhs you have to spend. So that is why I'm trying my level best to merge with CDCS syllabus so that you will be getting the best knowledge in the trade, right? Okay. Before I start, I will give a small self-introduction of myself. You all know my name, Susanta Caldera, and I've been a professional banker with about 45 years experience in banking, out of which more than 30 years in international trade. I started my career with Standard Chartered Bank. That was in 1973. And then I ended up my career with Standard Chartered after 25 years as the head of trade at Standard Chartered, Colombo. Then I got a good offer from HSBC, and I have worked with HSBC 10 years overseas, not in Colombo operations. Overseas, I was the regional head of trade finance, regional head of trade finance for the entire Middle East region, looking after 9 countries. Then I came back to Sri Lanka, and then I have joined NDB. Are there any people from NDB? As a consultant, I was there for about 3 years. And then again, HSBC wanted me to join Global Processing Center. I was there for another 2 years or 3 years period, and then joined Cargill's Bank to set up the bank. Basically, I'm the one who set up Cargill's Bank Trade Finance Department. So that's my working experience, and my lecturing experience, I have been with IBSL for the last more than 10 years or 11 years. And apart from IBSL, I'm a visiting lecturer for University of California in their banking special degree program. That's 4-year program. I'm lecturing for third-year students on international trade finance. And I'm lecturing at corporate campus also. So I have I must say, a fair experience in lecturing, more than fair experience in lecturing also. Right. So with that brief introduction, we'll start the sessions. Now, you can see the screen. You can see the screen?
No, sir, can't see.
Yeah. You can or cannot?
We cannot see, sir.
You cannot?
Yeah.
Oh my God. Why is that? Why is that? තාම පේන්නේ නැද්ද?
No, sir.
No.
No, sir.
One moment. Let me get that. Oh. Okay. Right. Okay. Can you see it now?
Yes.
All right. Fine. Thank you. Okay. Every now and then when I ask questions, please respond. And the other thing is, this is not a normal class. All are trade practitioners. So please discuss, argue, and if you have any gray areas, please try to sort it out. Right? So don't shut your mouth and just wait. Right? Okay. Now, if I ask you, introduction to, when we talk about introduction to international trade, right? International trade in Sri Lanka. What is your idea? When have it started in Sri Lanka? International trade operations. Initially, 100 years back, 200 years back. What is your idea? International trade. Give me an answer.
400 years back.
Pardon?
400 years back.
400 years back. 400 years back, what had happened? Portuguese came to Sri Lanka, no?
Yes.
Right? Portuguese came to Sri Lanka. Yes, after that. So, is that the demarcation? 400 years. Thank you very much for the Anita example. This is the way we want to. Classic arangan kaya and metana. Api every never given them make a taranga activity. Right. Anything else? What about the others? Just
I think it is. Hello.
Oh yes. Tell me.
Yeah, I think it's from Anuradhapura Kolonnaru era. It's from starting our kingdom.
Good, very good. What's your name, please?
I'm Samira Vasala.
Samira Vasala from
NDB Bank.
NDB Bank.
Yes.
Right. Good. Samira's answer was, it will go back to Anuradhapura Kolonnaru era.
Yes.
Yeah. Do you agree? The others? Yes, actually, that's a correct answer. Because why Portuguese came to Sri Lanka was because even by that time we were popular for cinnamon and ivory and all those things. That is why they came to Sri Lanka. So before Anuradhapura era, we don't have any traces. But when you talk about the international trade operations in Sri Lanka, that will run into those ancient and medieval periods. The Anuradhapura era, we have a lot of information when you go through Mahavans and all. This is, at that time, Sri Lanka was a self-contained agrarian economy with a substantial agricultural surplus. Right? There were so many stories to say that during King Gajava and all, I mean, we used to, King Parakumba and all, we used to export rice to other countries. Now we are importing. Right? So when we are exporting agricultural crops, that means we were involved in right. Okay. Then came the Polonnaru period. Now, during the Polonnaru period, the main exports of our country were pearls, gems, cinnamon, and elephants. Right? Even during Anuradhapura era, we have traded horses. Even King Elara, Senaguttika, they were horse traders who have come to Sri Lanka. Right? And we were famous for those things. Then Sri Lanka has become a vital link in the trade routes between the East and West. Right? Then come in the period that followed, Yapawa, Kotte, right? Cinnamon became the main item in the export trade. Right? That is why a lot of Europeans, they eyed Sri Lanka, and their attention was on our country because of our export trade. Right? We all know the recent history. After the Portuguese and Dutch and the British ruling era, how much of damage done to our country. Some good things, but lot bad things. The period of foreign domination, the Portuguese period from 1505, the main export was cinnamon. Then the Dutch from 1656, right? They too were mainly interested in the protection of the cinnamon monopoly. But however, they encourage other crops like coffee, pepper, and cardamoms. And those are the people, the Dutch people were the guys who were instrumental in building a network of canals that have survived up to the present day. We all know that canals in Wattala, Alakande area that runs to Chile, Dutch Canal, right? Hamilton Canal. Then the British period. The Dutch were ousted by the British in 1795. And then they introduced, in 1830, they introduced coffee as a plantation crop. And then by 1842, they introduced tea and coconut as plantation crops, right? By 1910, tea was the leading export crop of the island, and rubber was the second, right? Then the period since independence from 1948, even though none of us were there during 1948, but we have heard a lot about the what has happened since independence, what has happened to our international trade in the country. And we had a closed economy, but in 1977, there was a regime change. Mr. J.R. Jawadana came into power and introduced the free economy, or the open economy to our country, right? And there are pluses and minuses on that. I'm not going to discuss those things. But when you're studying this international trade businesses, it's always advisable if you can find certain reading materials and read and get some information, idea about the background in international trade operations in Sri Lanka. All right. Now I'm going to ask you a question. What is international trade? From now onwards, we are now moving into the main syllabus, right? What is international trade? International trade is the exchange of goods, services, or performance and capital across international borders. When we are dealing within a country, that is domestic trade. But if you are dealing across the borders, then it is international trade, right? Before we understand what is international trade, it is better to understand how international trade differs from domestic trade. Now, when it comes to domestic trade, tell me, have you done any domestic trade in your life? In your
Yes,
life?
sir.
You have done. What sort of domestic trade?
Day to day we are doing.
Yes. Good answer. Day to day we are doing. Day to day we are doing. We go to boutique, buy goods, that is domestic trade. Right? Okay. For example, if you want to buy a shirt to go for a wedding, right? Then what action you take? Now you want to buy a shirt. Now definitely you have to check your color of your suit. and then you have to see a matching one, right? For that, you will visit one of these shops, Hamidias or Emeralds or whatever. You will visit them, and then you will go through the selection, and then you select the correct thing. And when you select the correct thing, the correct shirt, correct color, correct design, then you can touch it and see about the material, whether it's 100% cotton or is it mixed one, right? Is it shrinking? All those things you can see and you can touch, right? And then only you will buy it. If it suits your purse, then you will buy it, right? So when you are doing in domestic trade, it's a common language and culture. Common language and culture. The same law applicable to you and me, the both parties, the same law. Law applicable to Sri Lanka, right? Absence of custom formalities. You don't have to go through the customs, right? You don't have to pay the custom duties. Those are already paid. Then usually relatively simple documentation. Usually relatively simple documentation. You don't have to prepare bill of exchange. You don't have to prepare bill of lading, insurance certificates. What is the only simple documentation? What is the only simple documentation in international trade? No, sorry, domestic trade.
Bills.
Pardon?
Receipt or bills.
Is it bills?
GRN.
Invoice.
Invoice. They කඩේ බඩු ගන්න ගියම invoice එකක් දෙනවද?
No, it's receipt or bills.
Basically they are giving the receipt as a confirmation that we have paid that particular goods.
That's it. That's it. Simple receipt. That's the only documentation, right? Invoice අරගන්නේ අපි කෙලින්ම සල්ලි ගෙවුවා ගත්තා. A single currency. You are not going to pay them in dollars or pounds. You are going to pay them in Sri Lanka rupees, right? And so there won't be any problem. Exchanging into some other currencies, applying rates, nothing will apply. Then relatively simple formalities to transport goods from buyer to seller, right? What is international trade? Sorry. Then we'll see what are the main characteristics of international trade. Now, international trade, as I have mentioned earlier, international trade is the exchange of goods, services, or performance and capital across international borders, right? So when you're selling from one country to the another, you have to spend some effort, or you have to spend some money on marketing. You have to market your product. So that is why more costly marketing efforts. More costly marketing efforts. And another important thing is coping with custom formalities. It has to go through another, from one country to another one. So it has to go through custom barriers. So you have to abide by the custom formalities, right? Then dealing with different legal requirements. Dealing with different legal requirements. If you are exporting goods to Saudi Arabia, is the legal system in Saudi Arabia and Sri Lanka is same? Is it same? Is it same?
No, sir.
No.
No. In Sri Lanka, we have Roman Dutch law and English law. Right? Then Saudi Arabia, we have Sharia law. So, two different legal requirements. Right? So, you have to balance it. It's a little bit complex. Then, relatively complex transport arrangements. Not like putting the things in a silly bag and take it home, right? Now you have to transport goods from one country to the another, right? So you have to find a way of doing it. So it's a complex transport arrangements. Risk involved in foreign currency settlement. Obviously, nowadays we know it's very volatile, going up and down, right? So there's a risk, always there's a risk in foreign currency settlement. Then no guarantee of the value at the time of settlement, conversion rate. That's also getting changed. Risk of buyer default, unknown parties, as well as the seller, right? Not only the buyer, both parties are not known to each other, right? So overseas government action. Overseas government action. What do you mean by overseas government action? Because sometimes in some countries, all of a sudden, when there's a regime change, there may be certain restrictions, moratorium. So in a scenario like that, how much the buyer and the seller is willing to do the transaction, they won't be able to do it freely because there are certain restrictions, right? Why do countries trade? Why do countries trade? Now, when you take countries like, we say, Singapore, right? And we have Sri Lanka. Lanka, anyway, I say, Lanka, nearby, right? The both countries are in the same equator, but the weather conditions, climate is almost similar, Singapore and Sri Lanka. But if you take a crop like rice, right? Which country has the advantage over the other? Which country has the advantage over the other? Singapore, Sri Lanka. Obviously Sri Lanka. Why? Weather condition, climate is almost similar. But we have the advantage over Singapore. Can you give me some reasons? Can you give me some reasons?
They don't have the production capacity in their country.
They don't have the production capacity in their country. Okay. One more.
Sri Lanka has access to more resources than Singapore?
Yeah, we have access to more resources. In the sense, we are specialized. We are specialized in paddy cultivation. We are specialized for years and years from our ancient periods, right? We have specialized, right? And we have a good irrigation system on top of the other. Singapore, they don't have good irrigation system like us, right? And our farmers are experienced set of people who can attend to this paddy cultivation. Like that, so many reasons we can give, right? And when you take countries, no country is self-sufficient at present. No country is self-sufficient. If I ask you, those days I used to ask the students, what are the countries in the world who are self-sufficient? Always the people will come out with answer: Cuba, North Korea. Right? Not that they are self-sufficient. Why you are mentioning those names? Because they are not dealing with many countries in the world. They are isolated, right? But that doesn't mean they are self-sufficient. Even North Korea is buying things from other countries, right? Then Cuba, even Cuba buying tea from us. We sell tea to Cuba, right? Not even countries, even the towns and cities are not normally self-sufficient, right? And the other thing is the political impetus from the development of the free trade areas such as NAFTA, SMP, and WTO, World Trade Organization and all, because of these multilateral trade agreements or bilateral trade agreements, you tend to do more business with other countries, right? So it's now the world has become smaller and smaller, and we are, and if we if we can grow something cheaper, we'll do it. And there are certain crops where we have to spend more money to grow here, and it is cheaper to buy it or import it from another country, then we will not focus on that particular crop, the items. Right? We'll grow whatever we can more and then import whatever we want for a cheaper price rather than cultivating here, right? This concept of absolute advantage and comparative advantage in international trade, there is the only theoretical thing I had to discuss with you in international trade. This absolute advantage theory was introduced by Adam Smith in 1776, and the theory of comparative advantage and cost by David Ricardo and others in 1817. Why I said David Ricardo and others, that was a joint effort by David Ricardo and his companions. Then opportunity cost theory, Gottfried Haberler, he introduced this theory. Right? We'll discuss one by one. Theory of absolute advantage. As I said, each country has their own advantage of producing a particular goods as opposed to another. right? Sri Lanka has absolute advantage of producing tea, while Canada has for wheat and Caribbean has for bananas. Right? Now, normally tea grows in upcountry. If you go to, if you visit country like New Zealand and all, then they have the same climatic condition like our country, but you can't grow tea there, right? Though Sri Lanka can grow sugar cane, it has been proved that importing sugar from Brazil or Singapore is much cheaper. So if we can import it much cheaper, then why we are trying to grow here, right? You got my point, no? Right. Then, due to favorable climatic conditions and natural resources, expertise, and technical know-how, some countries enjoy an absolute advantage in producing particular goods more efficiently than other countries, right? And through specialization, these countries can achieve a surplus in production, and such surplus can be traded internationally. We'll take a small example and try to understand what is absolute advantage. For a commodity with only one factor of production, for example, labor, if one country uses less labor than another to make a given amount of the commodity, that country has an absolute advantage for that particular product. If you take the table 1, wheat hours to produce 1 ton and cars hours to produce 1. In UK, figures just to understand the theory. In UK, we assume they need 300 hours to produce 1 ton of wheat. 1 ton of wheat. Whereas Canada, they need only 200 hours. They need only 200 hours. Then, when it comes to cars, the UK needs 150 hours to produce a car. Canada, they need 250 hours. Canada, they need 250 hours. Now, if you take this particular one, who has the advantage of between these two countries? Who has the advantage of producing wheat? Producing wheat. Who has the advantage?
Canada.
Canada. And when it comes to cars?
UK.
Right? Then we'll see what is comparative advantage. Now, comparative advantage is a bunch of products. For example, certain countries are more productive than other countries in the production of certain commodities. A country, therefore, has a comparative advantage over another country in the production of that particular commodity, right? And normally, when it comes to comparative advantage, a bunch of products. Now, for example, this one, wheat hours to produce 1 ton, UK needs 400 hours. Canada $200. Right? Then cars, when it comes to produce the car, UK needs 375 hours, whereas Canada needs $300. Here, the Canada has an absolute advantage in both goods, as it requires fewer hours of labor to produce both cars and wheat. Right? The opportunity cost of producing these goods can be shown as follows. Now, for example, if we in UK, right, they need 400 hours to produce 1 ton of wheat, and they need 375 hours to produce 1 car. Okay. Now, if you are going to, instead of producing wheat in UK, they will concentrate on producing cars. Right? Then how many cars they can produce in lieu of producing wheat. Now, instead of 400 hours, right, they need only 375 hours to produce a car. 400 hours divided by 375 is 1.07. 1.07. Okay. And on the other hand, if they put all their resources, man hours to produce wheat, right? Then with that 375 hours of producing cars, then car එක හදන්නේ නැහැ. 375 hours we use it for producing wheat. Then we'll be able to produce 0.94 tons of wheat. 0.94 tons of wheat. Less than 1. Less than 1. 1 not නම් ගමන්නේ නැහැ. මෙතන less than 1. Right? Now, in the on the other hand, Canada, instead of spending 300 hours on producing 1 car, if they put that resources also to produce wheat, then they will be able to produce 1.5 tons of wheat. Right? Then ekama cars වලට ගියොත් 0.67 cars. So it is cheaper. Hello?
I did see your screen.
Pardon?
I didn't see your screen.
You can't see the screen. What about the others?
Same to me. I can't see
Yes,
the
sir.
screen.
Same. Can't see the screen.
Can't see the screen. Why is that? Menega, screens. One moment. Screen.
Once you share the tute, it's not appears to our screen.
Now, can you see?
Yes, we
Yes,
can see.
I can see.
No.
Now okay?
Yes.
Now it's fine.
All right, fine. Okay. Then under the opportunity cost theory, if a country can produce goods at a lower opportunity cost compared to another country, it has comparative advantage in producing such goods. That's what we have discussed, right?
So again, same the problem.
Again the problem. Menaka, again the problem. Okay. Fine. Sorry for this technical hiccups with these things are happening. Then under the opportunity cost, right? Under this theory, if a country can produce goods at a lower opportunity cost compared to another country, it has comparative advantage in producing such goods. And also the opportunity cost is the value of resources sacrificed from another product to produce a particular product, right? Now in Sri Lanka, may sacrifice the cost of expertise, import of raw materials, technology, etc., of producing a car to produce garments, which is comparatively advantageous considering the cheap labor, standard of living, and proximity to raw material market. Now, when it comes to Sri Lanka, if you are going to produce a car, then we have to sacrifice the cost of expertise, import of raw materials, technology, everything to produce a car, right? But it is much cheaper, comparatively it is advantageous to produce, without producing a car, to produce garments because of a cheap labor. And so therefore, we will go for doing something cheaper and advantageous to us.
Presenting button එක යාගේ ප්‍රෙස් කරනවා. එතකොට තමයි ඔක මාරු වෙන්නේ. කියන්නේ කවුරුත් අර presenting button එක ඔබන්න එපා කියලා. ප්‍රෙස් කරන්න එපා කියලා.
I'm addressing all the participants. It looks like one of these participants is pressing present now button in your this thing. Then only it's get changed. So don't do it. Right? Just watch the this thing. Present now button එක press කරන්න යන්න එපා. එම ගියාම තමයි මේක වෙන්නේ. Right? Okay. Menaka. This again. Menaka. Make a change in there for one. Screens are not changing. Screens change in there. Okay. Right. Till he sort out the thing, I will continue with the thing, right? Now, we will discuss about the parties involved in international trade operations, right? The parties involved in international trade operations. Can you suggest one party in international trade operations?
Buyer.
Buyer, very good. And
Seller.
seller, and who is the buyer?
Importer.
Importer, and who is placing the orders?
Order.
Then the seller?
Manufacturers.
Yeah, he is the manufacturer and export
goods.
Goods. But do all the sellers do manufacturing?
No.
No.
Only trade.
Yeah.
There
So
are middlemen.
therefore, there should be another party in the international trade operation. That is manufacturers. Manufacturers, buyers, sellers, and no manufacturers. Right? If the seller does not make his own goods, then the manufacturer. Then comes another party, the shipping company or airline company. Why is shipping company or airline company?
Providing transports.
Yes, providing transport. One moment, can't change it. Sorry for the disturbances. The shipping company or airline company, because a transport of goods overseas and issue bill of lading or airway bill as a receipt of goods. So they are the people who get involved. Then agents. Now it's okay. Agents. Agents are the people who represent either the buyer or seller overseas. For example, Abans. They are the agents for what brand? Abans. Abans nama mana din agents right? Huh? LG.
Apple.
LG brand majority. Abans nama agents lah. Then Soft Logic. I'm trying to get some examples. Then it's
Samsung.
Huh?
Softlogic Samsung.
Or Samsung. Softlogic Samsung. Right? The Singer also, they are agents for various products. Right? Like that, they are the people who represent either the buyer or the seller overseas. Right? Then shipping registries. Why shipping registries? What are shipping registries? What are shipping registries? In international trade operations, I don't know whether you guys who are doing the international trade in your respective banks, respective departments, whether checking these things, we normally have to see whether the carrying ship is seaworthy. Carrying ship is seaworthy, right? Normally in international trade, we if you are transporting from New York to Colombo, what is the age of the ship we are looking at? Make a bank but when you're if you are an importer and exporter, then they have to check these things, right? Normally in international trade, the age of the ship should be less than 20 years. Less than 20 years.
Excuse me, sir.
Yeah.
Who is called Prasad? He's not mute his speaker.
Sorry.
Prasad. Someone called is Prasad. That his speaker is on. Microphone is on. Now it's okay.
Now it's okay.
Yes, Prasad.
Maybe one of the participants. Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Now it's okay.
Okay, thanks. Right. So we have shipping registries, Lloyd shipping registries. In the Lloyd shipping registries, they explain about the pedigree of the ship. when it was built, when it was first birthed, right? And then what's the age of the ship and all those things. So normally, if it's a long distance journey, we always look for ships less than 20 years of age, right? Titanic වගේ ships වලින් කරන්න පුළුවන් ඉන්දියාවේ ඉඳන් ලංකාවට නම් ගේන්න පුළුවන් පැය දෙක තුනකින්, right? නැත්නම් අපේ මිනිස්සු ඒවත් මූදේ යට ගිලිච්ච එකත් ගලවලා අරගෙන පටවල එවයි. So those things we have to go through the shipping registries. Then Chamber of Commerce. Chamber of Commerce, they are the people who issue certificate of origin, right? Not only that, they are involved in so many other things, right? E-certificates and all those things. Certificate of inspection certificates and all. Some of the things are issued by Chamber of Commerce. And every country has Chamber of Commerce. And the banks. The banks, they are the people who are always ready to give finance or to finance these transactions. Finance these transactions, right? Then let's see the main objectives of the parties to a transaction. Main objectives of the parties to a transaction. Now, when we have buyer and seller, one thing you have to understand is buyer and seller are in two different countries. They are not known to each other, right? So, they are, in most cases, they don't have any idea about the other party. Because of that, they have two different objectives. The buyer as well as the seller, they have two different objectives, right? The buyer's objectives are, one is contract fulfillment. Contract fulfillment. That means to receive the correct quantity and quality of the goods purchased. To receive correct quantity and quality of the goods purchased. So, that is one of the objectives of the buyer. And to receive in a timely manner and at the correct place. To receive in a timely manner. What do you mean by received in a timely manner and at the correct place? Now, when it comes to garments, okay, if our garment manufacturers, if they had to send winter clothes to UK, London, right? So they are sending winter clothes to London. But if you are sending winter clothes to London, the clothes, those garments should reach London well before the winter. Well before the winter. Then only the people will go for shopping looking for winter clothes. Just before the winter. Right? But if you don't send the stuff in a timely manner, what is happening? By the time they receive the winter clothes, it's their summer. There's no point of having the winter clothes. Right? So this thing is one of the objectives of the buyer. And at the correct place. And at the correct place. I can give you a nice example. When I was working for HSBC Dubai, one of my guys, my trade guys, all right, he has sent the documents. He has sent the documents which should go to Tanzania, to Tunisia. Tunisia. Right? So, මම ඇහුවාම මොකද මේ වැඩේ කරේ කියලා. See their knowledge, right? See their knowledge, but not Sri Lankan guy, yeah? Not a Sri Lankan guy, not a local guy also. I had only few local guys in later stages, but otherwise majority Indians and Pakistanis are there, right? Is it two countries? Oh, it is not the same country. Just imagine the damage he has done, because the goods have gone, but the guy couldn't clear the goods because he doesn't have any documents. The documents have gone to the wrong place. To get the document, to correct the damage, so we'll have to inform the courier company, and they have to collect these documents from Tunisia base and then bring it to their London, the main office, and then reroute it to Tunisia. Right? Who is going to pay the damages? Whose fault? Right? Like that, the buyer is always willing to have it in the correct place and timely manner. Assurance that he does not have to pay the seller until he is certain that the seller has fulfilled his obligations correctly. That is one of the things he wants to drag the payment as much as possible, right? And before he pay, he wants to make sure that seller has done his part properly. To do that, there are certain ways we are going to learn, right? The credit, manage cash flow with the possibility of obtaining bank finance, or to defer payment as long as possible. It's an obvious thing. Buyers always try to defer the payment as long as possible. Even if you borrow some money from one of your friends, right? Promising that, okay, මචං මං පඩි ගත්ත ගමන් දෙන්නම්. එවන කියන්නේ මචං මං පඩි ගත්ත ගමන් දෙන්නම් කියලා සල්ලි ගන්නවා. පඩි දවසට man missing. Right? He wants to defer the payment. After 2-3 days, he will come and say, oh my God, I was to pay you, but something unexpected thing came up. I had to spend this money. Nothing to worry. Next salary date, I'll give you preference. So they want to defer, right? Then convenience. Using an intervening third party in whom both buyer and seller have confidence, right? The seller's objectives are under contract fulfillment, assurance that he will be paid in full with the agreed time limit. Assurance that he will be paid in full within the agreed time limit. Right? He always wants to get the money in full. Then to deliver the contracted goods or services as quickly as possible. The moment he gets the order, he wants to send the goods as quickly as possible and wash his hand. That's his objective. The prompt payment on completion of his contractual obligations, right? And to receive payment of the correct amount and in the correct currency. To receive payment of the correct amount and in the correct currency. For example, if you are if you have done if you open a LC, under LC, you have to pay sterling pounds, 25,000 sterling pounds. So from the buyer, you have to pay 25,000 sterling pounds to the seller. Now, instead of paying 25,000 sterling pounds, if you pay them the equivalent of 25,000 sterling pound in Sri Lanka rupees, will it be useful? No point. Because that guy in UK, he doesn't want Sri Lanka rupees. He wants his money or a contracted currency. Okay? Then the convenience. The convenience of receiving payment at his own bank or bank in his own country. Always the exporter will be happy to receive payment at his own bank or through a bank in his own country, domicile in his country. Right? Okay. The next one we are going to discuss when we are starting import-export operations. So, what are the external factors faced in international trade market? What are the external factors faced in international trade market? Now, to discuss this one, we take a model called PESTEL model. PESTEL, PESTEL model is normally used to assess the impact of external factors. The PESTEL NA, the first letter of each point. One is political, another one is economic, another one is social, technological, environmental, and legal. Environmental and legal. Under political, if you discuss, to what extent are the countries influenced by multilateral or bilateral agreement? Right? What do you mean by multilateral, bilateral agreement? What do you mean by bilateral agreement?
Two parties get involved then. Two parties getting involved. Or two countries.
Two countries, Pradha, not parties. Two countries. Right? We are always having bilateral agreements between the countries. Right? For example, give me an example. Bilateral agreement. Bilateral agreement. One example. Sri Lanka, India. Sri Lanka, India, we have bilateral agreement. Sri Lanka, Singapore, recently we signed a bilateral agreement about 2 years back. Then Sri Lanka, Singapore, we have bilateral agreements. Multilateral.
SARC agreement.
Very good. Multilateral means more than two countries. SARC, yes. NAFTA, that is another one. Among more countries, more than two countries. Right? So, because of those multilateral and bilateral agreements, the countries are they are compelled to do business. Whether they like it or not, I mean, they are compelled to do business. Some bilateral agreements are, what we have seen is one-sided. They are one-sided, right? Not equally supporting the both countries. Some are most of our bilateral agreements are one-sided, favoring the other party. Sri Lanka and India, for example, right? Any historical relationship between the countries that would benefit or hinder the relationship. Any historical relationship between the countries. If we have historical relationship with India, so we tend to do more business with them, right? We have historical relationship with China, so we used to do business, or sometimes it can hinder also, right? What is the political regime of the country? What is the political regime of the country? If it is communist countries, right? And if we are not going to have more relationship with that particular country, then we are not going to do any business, right? So political regime is also very, very important. If you take last few years, right? We had, after the war, we had Mr. Mahinda Rajapaksa's government. Then 2015, political regime was changed, and then they were more supportive towards America and all. I mean, people, those countries were supporting Sri Lanka, the others were not, right? It is like that. It's an international politics. Does the domestic country have any sanctions in place with the country where the business wishes to trade? Does the domestic country have any sanctions in place with the country where the business wishes to trade? Now, for example, Iran. We have UN-US sanctions. When we have UN-US sanctions, right? So they can't do business with the other countries. Can somebody tell me any repercussion on those sanctions? Like Iran, can we open? Okay, I'll ask this question this way. Iran, we have UN and US sanctions, right? Can we open LCs in US dollars with Iran? Can we open LCs?
No, we can't.
We can't. Why? What happened if we open? If you open, what will happen?
US will not pay to the seller.
Yes. Yeah, when it goes to US clearance, because anyway it has to go to US clearing, no? If it is US dollars, it has to go through US clearing. So New York clearing, when they see the transaction is with Iran, they'll stop it. They'll freeze it. Right? They will not allow. So sanctions are very, very important. Economic. Is the country affected by a high level of industrial growth? Those are one of the reasons. What is the impact of currency fluctuations between two currencies? What is the impact of currency fluctuations between two currencies? Now, for example, Sri Lanka rupees, dollars, very volatile, right? But if you say two countries are doing business, Italy and Germany. Italy and Germany. What is the currency? What is the currency fluctuations? Italy and Germany. Italy, what is the currency? Common sense.
Euro.
Euro. Germany?
Euro.
Same.
It's the same currency. No fluctuation.
Euro.
Then it is easy for them to do business. But if they are doing business with us, it's fluctuating, right? Do the two countries share the same currency, or their currency is pegged? Their currency is pegged. What do you mean by currency is pegged? Currency is pegged. Do you know what is pegging? When you peg we use pegs to peg a tent, right? When you put up a tent, guides and scouts might know about this, right? You have to put pegs and tied up with strings, right? And if it is the whole time, I mean, if the pegs are solid, that will sustain, right? But if you remove one peg, it will go off balance, right? There are certain countries, their currencies are pegged. Now, best example I can give you is Dubai. Best example. I was there for about 10 years. I worked in HSBC for more than 10 years. Now, when I joined HSBC in 1997, the dollar to UAE dirhams was 3.66. $1 equals to dirham 3.66. When I left Dubai in 2007, the currency rate was dollar to dirhams was 3.66. Same. ලංකාවේ නම් කොහොමද ඉන්නේ? ලංකාවේ අවුරුදු 10කින් ඕනේ. In 2015, our dollar was 131.50. Today, 202 or 203. Isn't it? Right? So see the difference, the fluctuation. Right? And during the war period, the final war period, that is 2007 to 2009, our dollar was pegged. That was an artificial peg. Normally, it has to be pegged according to the demand and supply to that particular currency. But ours was artificially pegged. Artificially pegged, 108 to return. USD LKR. USD LKR was 108. For about 2 or 3 years, it was like that. Then after the war, somewhere around 2010, they released the artificial pegging. Overnight, it went up to 112. The following day, it was 116. One day later, it was 120. It was like a kite. Right? Then, level of inflation between two countries. Level of inflation between two countries. Employment level of two countries. Right? All those things under economic we can discuss. Social, are there any religious or cultural differences? Will language be a barrier? Are negotiation style between the two countries different? Right? Are there any religious or cultural differences? Will language be a barrier? Are negotiation styles between the countries? What do you mean by, are there any religious or cultural differences? Again, we will take Sri Lanka and Saudi. Right? We have cultural differences. We have religious differences sometimes. Now, certain meat products are haram in Saudi. It's not according to their religion. It's haram, right? So when we are doing business, international trade, you have to consider all these facts, factors. Then will language be a barrier? Certain African countries, even in some countries like some countries in China and all, not all the people are talking English, right? Are negotiation styles between the two countries different? Technological. How can a company protect copyright or intellectual property rights? Then does the country have certain safety standards that must be adhered to? Right? Those things they have to check. Then environmental. Some countries demand that the goods they consume are produced in an environmentally friendly manner. Some countries, they are very particular about this, right? Then policies of the countries on climate change and global warming. Policies of the countries on climate change and global warming. Sometimes the policies of the countries we are talking, even the policies of banks on climate change and global warming. For sure, I know when I was with HSBC, in our trade finance and the banks, what do you call this, procedure manuals, the procedure manuals, we can't open LCs. We can't open LCs to import logs. Logs can leak out, right? Logs. Why? Why? The bank thinks, the group thinks, when we cut trees to get logs, that will affect global warming and the climate change. True. But some banks are not bothered about that. Likewise, some countries are also like that. Some European countries, they are very particular about these things. Any policies on protecting the environment? What are the policies on child labor? With China, we had this issue because of their child labor. Late 1990s, we had this issue. Then they had to change their policies on child labor. Earlier, it was a very popular one in China. Legal, different laws between countries, employment laws of certain countries, for example, minimum wage or number of hours worked. Right? Okay. Fine. I will, before I start this session, shall we take a small break of 15 minutes, right? Otherwise, very difficult to go on for 4 hours, right? I'll be back by 3:20 sharp. I'll be here, right? I'm going to start, and you also can grab a cup of tea and then refresh and rejoin at 3:20, right? If you have any questions, get ready with that. I'm ready to answer anything, right? Okay. Quickly, we'll disperse and we'll come back. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
All right, fine. Okay. We'll continue from where we have stopped. Bank's role as a trustworthy third party or intermediary between buyer and the seller. Now, we all know in international trade operations, the banks plays a major role because everybody, even whether the buyer or the seller, they both come to the bank. Why they are coming is they need the financial support, right? The bank is acceptable to both buyer and the seller by issuing a documentary credit. The buyer's bank guarantees the payment to the seller if you present the correct documents, right? We know the LCs, the buyer's bank will guarantee the payment to the seller. The buyer has to pay for the documents, but not until his bank receives them. So buyer also has some sort of remedy, because until the buyer's bank receives the documents, they don't have to pay. So once they receive the documents, they'll go through the documents to see whether the documents are compliant with the terms and conditions of the LC. So then both parties are okay. And on behalf of the buyer's bank has already given an irrevocable undertaking to the seller. Okay, if you have submitted the correct documentation as per the terms and conditions of the LC, we will pay you. So that's why the bank plays a major role. A bank is a financial institution and therefore has the necessary expertise in handling international trade transactions. That's another one. Because since we are a financial institution and we have the necessary expertise in handling the international trade transaction. Now you guys, majority of your guys who are working in trade, why the customers are coming to you is not only to do their transactions, to get your advice, expert advice, right? So as practitioners, you should give the correct advice to your customers always, right? If you give the correct advice to your customer, they will never forget you. They will never forget you. I'll tell you a very good example. Now, I left Standard Chartered Bank in 1997. Now it's more than 24 years. More than 24 years, right? But still, some of the customers, if I go to first cross street or second cross street, or if I meet some customers, they recognize us. And they know, they always say, sir, when you were there, you used to advise us to grow our business, right? So always the expertise, we have the expertise, and the customers are waiting to get our advices. The bank is able to supply trade and credit information, which is very important to both buyers and sellers. I don't know whether these things are happening now, but when we were doing international trade, I used to do this, right? Because the buyer and the seller are in two different countries. And nowadays, especially, we don't know, under this present situations and COVID situations and all, the economic situation in every country is in shambles, right? And we don't know whether the customers are doing well or not. Customer and the customer's counterparties. So always it is good to advise your customers if they are dealing with some unknown party, in one of the European countries, Belgium or France or Japan, right? Advise them to get the trade and credit information. It will cost about, bank to bank, the charges are different. average about 10,000 rupees or so. Right? So even if you pay 10,000 rupees, 15,000 rupees, and get a proper trade and trade information from the corresponding bank, that will be superb. Right? A bank is ready to provide finance to help buyer and seller to fulfill their commercial obligations. Documents seen in collections. This one I will only give you only the names, but in coming weeks I'm going to discuss in detail each document. Right? In international trade, these are the common documents you can see. These financial documents, either bill of exchange or promissory note. Right? Commercial documents, commercial invoice, packing list, certificate of origin. Right? You are very familiar with these documents. Then insurance documents, insurance policy, insurance certificate, right? Transport documents, either BL or airway bill or whatever, truck consignment note or whatever, right? Those are the documents seen in international trade operations, which I am going to discuss with you in detail. Right. Let's discuss about this particular area in international trade. Whatever the international trade operations, the first link is between the buyer and the seller is the contract. Right? If you take the buyer and the seller, they both are in two different countries. Buyer will be in one country, seller will be in another country. Right? So between these parties, both are not very much known to each other. So we have a contract, sales contract. Sales contract. Even if under any payment method, then the first step is to have the sales contract. Right? A definition of a contract will differ depending on the country and the law which applies. But in general terms, contract can be described as an agreement between two or more persons or entities, which may or may not contain specific terms in which there is a promise to do something in return for a consideration. This is a legal document, contract. Right? So, in country to country, sometimes it depends. There can be small changes. But in general, we can describe a contract as an agreement between two or more parties. When I got two parties, two or more parties, right? Which may or may not contain specific terms, in which there is a promise to do something in return for a consideration. In international trade operations, now this guy seller will do something, but they will send goods. They will send goods. Right? For a consideration. What is the consideration? Payment. Cash. He will send goods to the buyer the consideration of getting paid. Right? The contract should always specify the applicable law. Once the negotiation process is completed between the parties, the next stage is to draw up a contract. When international trade, the first thing is between the buyer and the seller. First, they have to have a negotiation of what they are going to sell, what they are going to buy, and how they are going to do it, and on what payment methods, and what are the terms and conditions. Everything they will discuss. After the discussion, they said, okay, now we are ready to do the transaction. Then they will draw up a contract. Right? What makes a valid contract? What makes a valid contract? To make it a valid contract, there must be a firm offer and acceptance of that offer. There must be a firm offer and acceptance of that offer. Right? මේ ටික ඔක්කොම කළාට පස්සේ මම ඔයගොල්ලන්ගේ ප්‍රශ්න අහනවා. ඔයගොල්ලන්ගේ day to day operations වල මේ කොහොමද apply වෙලා යන්නේ කියලා. Right? Now, who gives the offer? In a valid contract, who gives the offer? Is it the buyer or the seller? Who gives the offer?
Seller.
Huh?
The seller?
Seller.
Seller.
Yeah, correct. The seller is giving the offer. And then it will be accepted by the buyer.
The buyer.
Accepted by the buyer. Right? I think මෙතෙන්දී ඔයගලන්ට මට කියන්න ලේසි එකක් තියෙනවා. Proforma invoice is a summary of the valid contract. It's a summary. It is not a contract, but it's a summary of the contract. Right? Who issues the proforma invoice? Buyer or seller? Proforma invoice? Seller. Always seller. Proforma invoice is issued by the seller. And who accepts the proforma invoice?
Buyer.
The buyer. And if buyer doesn't like certain terms and conditions, what is happening?
They can negotiate and they can amend it.
Yes. Perfect. Perfect. We call it in this contract of law, you know, the seller has done an offer and then counter offer and acceptance. After the negotiation, they offer a counter offer and then accept it. Right? Then there must be an intention to create a contract. There must be an intention to create a contract. Because this is a legal document. There must be consideration. Each party provides something to the other. Right? The seller provides goods and the buyer provides payment. Right? There must be capacity to contract. Consent must be freely given without duress or based on false information. Right? Consent must be freely given without duress or based on false information. The purpose must be legal. The purpose must be legal. So those are the points that makes a valid contract. Once a seller has produced the contract, it will constitute their offer to the buyer. It will constitute their offer to the buyer. Right? Who may respond in one of the following ways. Once the seller has produced a contract, it will constitute their offer to the buyer, who may respond in one of the following ways. Give acceptance as presented. Give acceptance as presented without any counter offer, any objections, they accept. Give acceptance but with reservations or conditions. For example, counter offer. Right? They will say, okay, we will accept the contract, but there are certain reservations or conditions which we need to be amended. We call it counter offer. And if the seller is agreeable with that, then the buyer will accept it. Right? Or reject the offer entirely. If they doesn't like, they can reject the offer entirely. Right? Information included in an international sales contract. Information included in an international sales contract. What are the information? One is currency to be used applicable for payment. All these things, just go through your memory and see most of the things are included in the pro forma invoices also. Right? It's a summary of the sales contract. Right? Currency to be used applicable for payment. Right? Pro forma get currency US dollars. Exact nature and quantity of goods. Exact nature and quantity of goods. Price. Price. Price also we have to price also we have to mention. Right? Then packing requirements. Packing requirements. How to pack it, whether it's in crates or in containers or in boxes. All those things we have to mention. Then inspection and quality control requirements. Inspection and quality control requirements. If you want to have an inspection, a quality control requirement, whether they are willing to supply a independent inspection certificate or whatever. Insurance requirement. What should be the insurance requirement? Shipping terms to be applied. That is Incoterms. Incoterms, international commercial terms. Right? Dates by which goods must be dispatched, delivered. Dates by which goods must be dispatched or delivered. Method and timing of payment. Method and timing of payment. Why dates and by which goods must be dispatched, delivered? What do you mean by that? What do you mean by that?
Latest date?
Latest
Shipment date. Date for shipment.
Yeah, latest date for shipment. Right? Latest date for shipment. We have to have some idea. Otherwise, winter clothes. I'm sorry. Winter clothes, they will dispatch it up even after summer, right? Methods and timing of payment. Right. Now, why I have included this contracts of sales is important for you, because here you can see most of the things are included in the pro forma invoice, because as banks, we will never see the customers' valid contracts between the two parties. Now I am talking to the trade guys, mostly the trade guys, or even corporate trade people who are dealing with customers, right? I'm telling you, do not or never ask the customer to bring the valid contract to you for your perusal. Never. Don't do that. Right? You're asking for trouble. Sometimes the customers will ask you, to get your opinion on certain conditions on the contract. Don't get caught to that one. Because, we have nothing to do with the contract. Right? But, I'm sorry. But when they see that you are a weak person or something, they will come to you and they will ask you, they will tell you, sir, I have my contract with the other party. Certain conditions I can understand. Can you get me some opinion? Okay. Can you give me some opinion? එච්චරයි. එතකොට ඉතින් ඔගොල්ලෝ ලොක්ක වෙන්න යනවා. No problem, Mr. Perra. Bring it. Right? You want to be the best person to the customer. Right? No problem, Mr. Perra. Bring it. So he will bring the thing. You will go through the thing. And some areas you will say, this you have to be careful. This, why not you ask for a clarification and all sort of things. Subsequently, if there's any unmatched areas in contract and the pro forma invoice and all, you will open the LC according to the pro forma invoice, and if something happens, if something goes bad, the customer will later tell you why. In fact, you have gone through the contract. And advised me to do this, do that, and all sort of things. They will try to put the blame on you. So please don't get involved in those things. In my career, a lot of customers were trying to bring their contracts and ask my opinion. I have never given, and I will not give. Right? Now, බලන්නවත් එපා. කස්ටමර්ගේ contract එක කියන්නේ නිකන් සර්පෙක් වගේ. අල්ලන්නත් එපා. නිකන් අහකැන්ල දෂ්ට කරන්න පුළුවන් උගලන්ට. Right? පුළුවන් තරම්. හැබැයි you have to be diplomatically, you have to refuse it. Right? Okay. types of finance. The banks can finance exporters by pre-shipment finance for specific requirements, right? For example, packing credits, manufacturing loans, right? To enable exporters to purchase raw materials to manufacture the goods. Pre-shipment financing. Another word is packing credit, or we call it manufacturing loans, to enable exporter to purchase raw materials to manufacture the goods. Now, if I try to draw this and show you, in a customer's trade cycle, this is my customer, ABC and company. Right? Then they will import raw materials. Right? It will take 1 month to receive the raw materials, and then it will take another 2 months to manufacture the product and export. Manufacture the product and export. Right? And it will take another 2 months to receive the cash. Another 2 months to receive the cash. 60 days DA. Or 6 days users. You'll see. Right? Here, the pre-shipment is, right, to produce the shipment. This pre-shipment. This is pre-shipment. Right? Before you produce the goods and ship, everything pre-shipment. So under the pre-shipment, we need to import raw materials, then the manufacturing cost, right? Then the salaries, all sort of overheads, they comes under pre-shipment. So we call it, this pre-shipment requirement, we call it packing credit. Packing credit කියන්නේ මේ pack කරන්න දෙන ණයක් නෙමෙයි. Pack කරන්න දෙන ණයක් නෙමෙයි, packing credit. Okay? Or manufacturing loans. Right? In simple, this is the facility to enable exporter to purchase raw materials to manufacture the goods. Right? And then post-shipment. Here we do the export, and then it will take another 2 months to receive the money. But we can't wait for 2 months. Because we have to settle all these loans. We have to pay salaries or advances to the staff. Right? We have to pay utility bills. So all things are there. Okay? So therefore, we have to discount these bills at this particular point. We have to discount these bills at this particular point. We call it to purchase or discount the bill of exchange. To purchase or discount the bill of exchange. Right? or else we can simply have an overdraft to cover the expenses of any kind. We have overdrafting cover kind, right? So these are the ones facilities by the exporters, where we can finance the facilities. The bank can finance importers by import loans for specific shipment, import loans for specific shipments, and running and overdraft. Running and overdraft. Right? What do you mean by specific? For the people who are not in trade. I know there are many people who are not in trade. So for their benefit, I'm explaining all these things. And from next week, there will be another 3 or 4 people from Ceylon Petroleum Corporation also. Because last batch, I think, if I'm correct, the last batch, there was one very senior officials at Petroleum Corporation. He joined my class, and he is recommending all his staff to go through this course because it's easy, it will be beneficial for them to do international trade operation, because you know Petroleum Corporation bills are massive bills, right? So they can't make any errors. So that's why they are training their people. So that's why I'm explaining a little bit further. Import loans. Here, this guy is importing. So for that, they need import loan facility. Right? The moment they receive the goods here, they have to pay. But they will get the money only after 2 months' time. Only after 2 months' time they get the money. So they need finances to bridge the gap. Right? Within the import loan, may bill survey karana import loans. Right? You running and overdraft. Okay. This is only the introduction. We are going to discuss these things in detail. Then international related publications of the International Chamber of Commerce. International Chamber of Commerce, domicile in France, Paris. They are the people who will issue all the related publications on international trade operations globally. One is UCP DC, that is UCP Documented Credit, Uniform Customs and Practice for Documented Credit, 2007 revision. Publication number 600. Makeup is shortened form commonly known as
UPC 600. UCP 600.
UCP 600. UCP 600. I think for guys who are in the trade department, in the office, you must be having a UCP 600 and URC 522. Please, I will request you to get a copy, photocopy, and keep it with you, right? For the benefit of the others who are not familiar with UCP and URC, I will upload both publications in the in your system so that you can print it and keep it with you, right? You can please get a printout and keep a personal copy with you, right? And Uniform Rules for Collection, 1995 revision, publication 522. Right? We call it URC 522. URC 522. Then URR, Uniform Rules for Bank-to-Bank Reimbursement. Uniform Rules for Bank-to-Bank Reimbursement, URR 725. Right? Then you have to read ISBP, International Standard Banking Practice for Examination of Documents. ISBP 681, very, very important. May we discuss karno. Right? Then ISP 98, that is for International Standby Letter of Trade. International Standby Letter of Trade, that also you have to, anyway, we are going to discuss, you have to read. Out of this, is very important, is by heart you should know UCP and URC. Because in your exam, we are testing a lot of articles. So the best thing is, once I give you he will upload it today itself, get a printout and always keep it with you, and at least every day, if you can read 2 articles of UCP, right? And 1 article of URC, 1 article URC, 2 articles UCP. We can finish the whole thing in 1 month. We can finish the whole thing by 1 month. The second month also you have to start reading the same thing, UCP and URC, right? Before the exam, at least you should have gone through thrice or 4 times these publications, UCP and URC. එතකොට මේ ඔක්කොම හොඳට කටපාඩම් වෙලා තියෙනවා. කටපාඩම් නුනොත් කමන්නේ. If you know the idea, that is more than enough, right? Then international trade data of Sri Lanka. International trade data of Sri Lanka. This is by mistake I have put 2013. It should be 2018, right? It should be 2018. These are the trade deficit, right? The import expenditure has gone up by 50.7%. 50.7%. And the import has grown up by 22.4%. Right? So tell me where we stand. Because our imports are more. Our import growth is more. Whereas our export growth is less. Even though there's a growth, but comparing to import, it's very much less. Half of that very. We have to send more and more money out because of the imports. Thanks to Corona, I think now we are controlling quite a lot of imports. Quite a lot of imports. Taking up a product in the Bay say, I can post the look on it. Well, news balano. May DIT Karadi, Patrakivanona, news balano. Right? Look at it. Put down product. Direction of trade. The major trading partners in 2018, this is a mistake. 2018 as India, Singapore, USA. Right? Other countries that had trade over US dollars 1 billion is China, Iran, UK, and Japan. Largest export destinations, USA, 24%, and UK, 10.5, and India, 5.2. Largest export destination. Foremost import origins, India, 17.6, imports, Singapore 9.3, and China 16.4. Right? The making peno ne apita ikak peno largest export destination USA. So sometimes we say, why should we go behind Americans? Right? Why can't we do our own business here and we should not be dictated by them? All sort of big talks we are having. But when you compare, when you analyze these issues, largest export destination is still USA. So if you are going to have issues against USA, then we are going to lose our market there. 24%. 24% can 1/4 of our export market. It's rapid, right? Exports by commodities. Just go through it. I mean, you can understand these things, right? Export by destinations, UK, Belgium, and all those things are there. Imports by origin, right? Okay, right. Now, every class, if possible, I'm trying to ask some questions and to check your knowledge, whatever the knowledge you have gathered during the class, right? Let's answer these questions. What are the subheadings of PESTEL model? Or PESTEL stands for
Political,
economic,
social,
technology,
environment.
Is
technology,
technology, is environmental, and legal. Right?
L is legal.
Yeah. Name 5 information included in a sales contract.
Price,
Currency,
Right? Very good.
currency,
Currency,
packing requirements,
quantity of
packing requirements,
packing requirements. Very good.
quantity
Incoterms.
And
Incoterms.
Incoterms. Very good. Very good.
quantity
insurance requirements,
Insurance requirement.
Shipping method, shipping method,
Right. Very good. Very good. Right. Again, shipping time. Neither. Shipment times. Very good. What makes a valid contract? Name 3 of those. What makes a valid contract?
Count offer.
offer,
Count offer.
Tell me one by one.
offer,
Offer.
acceptance,
Yes.
consideration,
No. Offer.
Count offer.
Count offer. Offer, count offer, and acceptance. Offer, count offer, if any, and acceptance. Right? Right. Good. Good. That means everything. Now, do you have any questions regarding today's session? Tell me if you have any questions. Today we can finish a little bit early. right? In time to count, we'll start at 1:15 and 5:15 නිකන් යනවා. හැබැයි ගොඩක් වෙලාට මම ඊට කලින් ඉවර කරනවා. සමහර දාට 5:15 නෙමෙයි 5:30 යන දවසුත් තියෙනවා. Right?
Sir, excuse sir, how do we calculate that opportunity cost, sir?
Opportunity cost එක calculate කරන්න වෙන්නේ. Then now I take that. Now let's see this one. Now this was the UK 400 hours and cars 375. So 400 hours divided by 375 is 1.07. Okay, correct? So that means instead of putting man hours to cultivate wheat, that 400 hours, if you take that 400 hours to produce cars, if you take that 400 hours to produce cars, then you can produce 1.07 cars. 1.07 cars, right? So that means UK will produce one car, and then without producing wheat, they produce another car 1.07, 1.07, right? More than one car 07 තව right? එතකොට මේගොල්ලෝ මොකද කරන්නේ? If UK wants wheat, 1 ton, instead of cultivating wheat, they can put all the resources to produce cars and then buy 1 ton of wheat from Canada. Because in Canada, if they are not going to produce cars with their resources, 300 hours, they can produce 1.50 tons of wheat. They can produce 1.50 tons of wheat, right? That means they will produce, if they want to transact between the two parties, UK will not produce wheat. Instead of that, they will produce cars, and Canada will not produce cars, they will produce wheat, right? එතකොට මේගොල්ලන්ට කැනඩා වලට පුළුවන් අර 1 ton 1.50 additional tons වලින් 1 ton they will give to UK and take 1 car. Still 0.50 tons are in excess, surplus, which they can sell it to some other country. But their main requirement is to grow wheat and manufacture cars. මේ දෙකම දැන් වෙනවනේ without doing. So their opportunity cost is then they have more, because with that money, with that 200 hours, if they are going to manufacture a car, they will produce only 0.67 cars, right? They don't want to spend man hours on that, right? Instead of that, they will produce one ton of wheat for them, 1 ton of wheat for them with 200 hours, and then additionally 1.50 tons of wheat by putting their resources to grow wheat instead of producing a car, manufacturing a car, right? That's the opportunity cost.
Okay, sir. Thanks.
Right. Okay. Anything else? Right. If there's nothing, then I'll call it a day. Anyway, it's good for me to go a little bit early because straight away I have to go to a native doctor because I'm having a මේකක් වෙලා තියෙනවා මේ කකුලේ මේ one of my legs crack එකක් වෙලා දැන් ඒකට බේට් එක දාගන්න යන්න වෙනවා. So today is a good day for me. Otherwise, I thought of going there tomorrow morning. But now I can go. And next week, get ready to work till 5 o'clock. Okay? Right. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. Who are the people from Standard Chartered? Who are the guys? Anybody from Standard Chartered?
I'm from Standard Chartered.
Sir, I'm from Standard Chartered Bank, sir.
What is your name?
I'm also from Standard Chartered.
I'm also from Standard Chartered.
Tell me the names.
I'm Dilusha.
Dinusha.
Yes.
I'm
And
Brittany.
Pardon?
Brittany and Shavini.
Brittany, Shavindri,
Shavindri and Rochelle.
Rochelle and Angelica.
And you all are in trade finance?
Yes,
Yes.
sir.
Yes, sir.
I think there's another person from sales division.
Yeah, that'll be me. I'm from Frontline Sales.
You are from?
Yes.
Sales.
Frontline sales.
Front.
Frontline sales.
Frontline. Okay. Okay.
Yes.
Frontline sales. Okay. Trade services. What are the areas you guys are handling?
There is shipping guarantee, there is collection, there is short-term loans, LC bills and LCs.
No. You are handling
I'm handling shipping guarantee.
shipping guarantee.
Yes, sir.
Right. Then.
I am doing import collections. Sir.
කවුද ඉන්නේ? ශාන්තද ඉන්නේ?
Mayuri. Mayuri is doing
Mayuri. Okay.
import collections. Yes.
මයුරියට කියන්න මම මතක් කරයි කියලා. මගේ පරණම ගෝල්. ශාන්ත මයුරි.
ක්ලාස් කරනවා කියලා සර්ට කියන්න කිව්වා මයුරි තමයි කරන්නේ කියලා.
ඔව් මයුරි ශාන්ත උදේනි රන්මලි Ola and Shehani. Right? Your entire team. Right. I always like to have a chat with Standard Chartered guys. 25 years. Right. Okay. Do you know that my daughter is also there?
Yes, I know.
Yes, sir. Yes.
Okay. Yesterday, this guy called me from Australia. Janaka, sales singer.
Janaka. Okay.
Janaka, sales singer. But I'm the one who brought Janaka to Standard Chartered. Janaka was my staff when I was at HSB. Ultimately, when Standard Chartered wanted a good guy, I recommended him and I got him there. Okay. See you then next week.
Okay, so thank you so much.
Thank you.